it is a marathon. So from the very beginning, the earlier you can make it into that kind of mindset of it is a marathon. I'm not running a sprint.
You're listening to the Happy Doc Student Podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing clarity to the often mysterious doctoral process. Do you feel like you're losing your mind? Let me and my guests show you how to put more joy in your journey and graduate with your sanity, health, and relationships intact. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Frederick, and this is episode 41. In this episode, I interview Dr. Birgit Fischer. Birgit is a licensed clinical psychologist, an EMDR clinician, an acupuncture detox specialist, and an accredited site visitor for the American Psychological Association. She operates a private practice in Pueblo, Colorado, where she specializes in forensic and neuropsychology with a focus on treating complex trauma. She is a clinical member of the Association for the Treatment of Sexual Abusers and has been approved by the Sex Offender Management Board as a clinical supervisor and full operational level provider and evaluator for adults with disabilities, and juveniles. She has been a presenter at multiple national and international conferences and is published in the areas of neuroscience, gerontology, and neuropsychology. Birgit has taught at several universities, both nationally and internationally. In addition to her teaching, clinical, and forensic work, she consults all over the world in the areas of risk management, mental health, trauma, program development, and program compliance. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Today, we are going to talk about this idea of the doctoral journey, specifically the dissertation, being a marathon and not a sprint.
Yes, in all of my years of sharing dissertations, being a committee member on different dissertations, one of the things I encounter, or one of the issues I encounter over and over, is students jumping into the process and just want to get it done, right? It's the last thing that they're doing, and without even being able to wrap their mind completely around it, it's just this idea of like checking off boxes. You wouldn't believe how many students have sat down probably in their kitchen and over one too many cups of coffee and just spun the entire dissertation out and sent it to me, and then was so upset and so discouraged, then it didn't make any sense. It wasn't method-aligned, it wasn't organized, and this idea of I'm going to just get this done in 2 months, it's not going to work that way.
And so many of my guests bring up this situation where, as an educational system, we've programmed students. You have an assignment, you do it in a short period of time, you move on. But the dissertation is this thing that is this iterative process that you're working on for months, even years. And so it's outside of what we know as a student. It's different.
It is. And again, most students are so not prepared for it. And the problem becomes that they get so attached to their words, it's almost impossible for them to disconnect. So what I'm trying to get them to do from the beginning is help them organize the process. And I tell them, again, it's not a sprint. So you probably are going to feel that I'm going to slow you down many times. And I am, because I want it to be a quality project. In 50 years from now, you're going to look at a book on the shelf that is your dissertation. You don't want to pick it up and start reading something, put it down and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wrote this. This is embarrassing. What if my grandchildren see this, right? So
it is a legacy that you're working on.
Absolutely. It's the crown jewel, right? It should represent you and who you are and the knowledge that you have. And again, it should be something you can be proud of.
Many people will say, students, that they come into the process feeling underprepared. And I've talked to so many chairs and committee members that say they work with students who are underprepared. Where do you think that originates?
I think it originates from, number one, students not really asking questions as they're going through their classes, and all of a sudden they're in front of the magic door that says dissertation, and they're opening it